Welcome, everyone, to episode number 69. Nice. Of Chatting with Nuts. This is Nuts After Dark, which, if you're not familiar, is where I go live solo and do an entire episode where I'm really just conversating with you in the chat. I try to do these once a quarter, every 10 episodes, roughly. It's been about 10 episodes since the last one. It's generally a little bit more chill, I would say, and it gives me an opportunity to talk about any of the opinions that I've been holding back, but also not holding back, but not opportunity to kind of get some things off my mind, but also to interact with all of you, answer some questions. And I do have kind of a topic for the night. I guess maybe it's not a topic, but a section of the show will be dedicated to going over books that I want to read in 2024. I know the new year's upon us and everyone's already put out their list. I didn't really want to make a 2024 video. I kind of just wanted to go to the mood reading side of things for 2024. But I do have roughly, I think it's 12 or 13 books here that I'm going to tell you guys about that I'm excited to read this year. It's not a guarantee I'll get to all of them, but I figure around 12 books. That's one a month. That's definitely doable. Plus I have the Patreon pick every month. So, there's 24 books for the year already. And then things that'll just come into my purview, attract me to want to read it, I will. But I hope everyone's doing well tonight. I'm glad to see everyone here in the chat, and for everyone watching after, I appreciate you as well. Josh Ramirez says the 69th episode had to be an After Dark one. Well done, Jimmy. I had a feeling that the 69th episode would be something that people were excited about. Derry says, greetings. I have a cuppa. I remember to hit like and remember to change from top to live on the chat. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I always forget to hit the top as well. I'm currently very uncomfortable. I tweaked my pec. Felt like I tweaked it a little bit in the gym yesterday. And then I went to jiu-jitsu and had an absolute mammoth of a man crushing me at one point. And it hurt worse. And it was okay today. It felt a little weird when I was working out. But like about an hour ago, it started to hurt a lot. So if I'm sitting here rubbing this, it's not because I'm infatuated with my pecs, though I am. It's more that I'm just trying to massage out this pain that I have. Like it's either my AC joint or my pec. I can't really tell. What's up, Benjamin? Good to see you guys. Rogue, always happy to see you. B says, is that the Himmy Nuts? You're damn right it is. You're damn right. The one and only. Kev says, is that pro COD player Hill Hooks? I'm your biggest fan. If you're my biggest fan, you'd play more ranked Call of Duty with me, Kev. I've been playing more Call of Duty than I should have been lately and yelling at teenagers. So my midlife crisis is in full swing, as you can tell. What's up, Belltube? It says the invisible person you in the thumbnail is surely representing the hidden magic within all of us. So thoughtful. I like to think that Belltube has really captured the essence of what Nuts After Dark is all about with this comment. I really like this. Justice for Kev. No, David, you do not need to get naked for the 69th episode. We're going to keep it pretty PG as we usually do, so the whole family can enjoy Chatting with Nuts. But I'm just excited. I'm going to have some stuff coming up this week. I didn't want to have to coordinate and get a guest and everything, and it's been a while since I did one of these, so I figured it would probably be a good time to do one of these. And I feel like these always end up, there's two things. One, I always get asked very good questions and it makes me think, but also I feel like I get to talk about some things that I don't have an opportunity to do because sometimes they don't come up naturally in conversation with whoever the guest is. So that's really nice. It's a little bit selfish of me, I guess you could say. Yes, mood reading for the win. The Patreon pick is always random, right? So like sometimes it doesn't fit my mood, which is tough, but for the most part, yeah, this is definitely going to be a mood reading year for me. Cause I kind of there were so many times last year where I'm like, I committed to this. I have to do it. And I know it doesn't really matter. Like if I make a video saying 5 books I want to read this year, no one actually cares if I read them besides, a select few amount of people. But for me, if I say something, I really, want to do it. It'll eat at me. Like for instance, I've had this George R. R. Martin video in the cooker forever and I still haven't done it. I was talking about it all the way back in September and I still haven't done it along with another idea. And it eats me alive. Literally every single time I wake up. It's one of the first things I think about. I need to do it. Story 2, what's up? You guys are reading Live Ship next month? Me? Not me. Not me. Maybe somebody else. Yeah, no staff here. thankfully. Also, happy birthday to Amanda, who has been a patron and a viewer and a friend for a very long time. So Amanda, if you're listening, happy birthday. And everyone can wish Amanda a happy birthday in the chat. And it was not a taekwondo injury, Benjamin. My goodness. Yes, it is a midlife crisis, Ryan, because I am 33 and there's no way I'm not going to see retirement. It's not happening. I don't see it. Hey, Spot Center, thank you so much for the super sticker, the $10 super sticker. It's very kind of you, very generous, and always am happy to see you around. Spot Center has been around since the wrestling days, way before Booktube. And yeah, special place in my heart for you, Spot Center. So thank you. Thank you very much. It's very kind of you. We got a couple people every time we go live for Chatting with Nuts. We always have people who are catching it live for the first time. It always makes me very happy because a lot of people do watch this after the fact. 99% actually. So I do think it's a bit, maybe this is a bit self-indulgent, but I think it's a little special to catch one of these live and to be in the chat because there's side conversations. People look forward to seeing people in the chat, and I don't know. It feels like a way to connect. And I'm glad that this gives people an opportunity to do that, because I know for me, I'm an introvert / extrovert. Like, I love talking to people, but I also struggle with it for some reason. So I'd like to think that I provide a place for those people in the live chat whenever these are on. Bee's knee says, how dare you talk about topics you want to talk about your own channel? What? WTF, man. I know. Is this where I do the YouTuber thing and complain about being, swayed by the algorithm to do this or that? I'm not going to do that. Don't worry. I don't think anybody actually wants that to happen. Evie wants to know when I'm reading The Spear Cuts Through Water for Simon Jimenez. I do plan on reading that. I actually don't have that in a stack because it's downstairs and I didn't grab it, but just know that is on the list for this year for sure. Yeah, Derry says the self-imposed pressure of declaring what you'll read kills the joy so fast. I think a lot of I'm a person that likes structure in my life and habits and schedules. I have a certain amount of times I want to hit jiu-jitsu. There's a certain amount of reading I want to get done per day. Things with work, working out in the gym, spending time with my wife, or whatever else it might be, right? So I think the one place that I still enjoy being spontaneous is reading. And I think if I were, I have time every day where I read for the most part. That fluctuates depending on my schedule. But I think if I take it too far and start structuring everything I'm going to read, then my life starts feeling a bit soulless. And that's not going to work for everybody. But for me, I need just a little bit of that wild card, in my life. Because I was very nomadic in my early 20s, traveling and not settling down and just kind of going where the world took me and where wrestling took me, in fact. And it's been like a huge shift for me to not be doing that. And I think that being spontaneous with my reads is an extremely lame way of scratching an itch that used to be scratched by something way more thrilling. So that's kind of where my life is at this point, I think. It's a good question, Mitch. How can one mood read when all lies within the currents of causality? You would have to ask Miura about this, but unfortunately, Miura is not around anymore. So, what's up, Neutral? Good to see you. This man got that West Virginian heart. Midlife is definitely apt. Benjamin says, how much do we all have to increase our Patreon pledge so you can retire now and prove you horribly wrong? I would never ask of that, but like $1 million, I guess, or something. I don't know. In this economy, retiring in this economy, I don't know. Is that what the boomers say? So Brendan Park wants to know, have I read Neuromancer, Jimmy? I have not. It's one that always comes up. I feel like everyone always talks about it, and it's just one of those blind spots that I have. I don't have any current plans of reading it this year, but usually what happens in these streams and anytime I talk about books is that someone will mention something like this, and I'll be like, oh yeah, and then I'll go read it, and then I usually end up ordering it, and I spend way too much money every single time I go live because I always end up ordering a ton of books, which, it's not the worst thing in the world. I try to tell myself at least it's not drugs, That's what I'm banking on here. Thank you, Spot Center. Yes, welcome to all the newbies in the chat. Absolutely love to see it. Accidental Arabist says, Jimmy, I know you've been reading more outside of fantasy. Stoner, I've heard you mention Faulkner. What other non-fantasy authors have piqued your interest? So I read Murakami for the first time this month, and while it was kind of an up and down experience for me, I have to try at least one more of his books, and that's the hard. I don't remember what it's called. It's the End of the World book. It's I assume it's about an apocalypse, hopefully, because I like apocalyptic fiction. But that's one. And then, as you'll see on this list here, also Kazuo. I'm probably saying this wrong. Kazuo Ishiguro. I hope I'm saying that right. And then I would also say Conor O'Flannery, Wise Blood. That's definitely on the list. And quite a few more. I'm probably going to finish up all of Cormac McCarthy's works this year. I have his final 2 books that he wrote, and then I also have the 3rd book in the Border trilogy, Cities on the Plain. That's what it's called. So there's some things. I also am not committing to it, but I would really like to get to Moby Dick this year, or attempt it. I did try Infinite Jest recently by David Foster Wallace, and I was about 100 pages in, and I'm too dumb. I'm just simply too dumb for it. People are telling me like take notes and keep track of certain things. And I'm like, you know what? I'm reading a lot of other stuff. I got to back away from this. I like some of what was put forward, but Infinite Jest, very challenging. Very, very challenging. What's up, Gavin? Good to see you, my friend. Said, I very much enjoy catching live as it's super late here and it's a great way to chill to end the day. I have a feeling that Chatting with Nuts is a lot of people's sleep aid, not just live, but like after the fact. Because I know the thing I've been doing recently, usually I'm blasting like World War II history because, well, I'm, a generic white dude that likes World War II history. But I've been listening to Dark Souls 3 Let's Plays, like speed runs, and I fall asleep to those. And I was just thinking, I was like, imagine a lot of people probably put on this like super boring, bland book talk and fall asleep to it. Like has to be a big amount of the viewers, because for how many people supposedly watch Chatting with Nuts now, like the past episodes, it doesn't make any sense. So I'm assuming that either people are falling asleep to it or that it's coming on next while people are asleep. I think that's probably what's actually happening. Daniel says, so put that TBR planning energy into spending time with your wife instead. Hey, absolutely. Me and the wife have some fun stuff coming up this week. So we're really excited, and I'm excited to hang out with her. And she has been reading a lot lately. She is in the that Sarah J. Maas, the newest series that has a new book coming out. She's in book 2 of that. And what else did she read? She's reading Ohio by Stephen Markley, which I'm going to talk about my wrap up for this month. I thought it was an excellent book. What else has she read? She's been reading a lot of stuff recently and kind of wanting to take on some newer stuff too. And we were talking about maybe going to Dragonsteel this year, since book 5 of Stormlight Archive is going to be coming out. And she is considering reading The Way of Kings. Will she like it? I don't know. But I'm glad that she's willing to give it a go. Getting caught up with the chat here. Let's see. So what's up, Ryan? Says, me planning to read something more than a couple weeks ahead is the most effective way not to read it anytime soon. Yeah, I feel like there are books that I've been perpetually talking about I am going to read. One of those happens to be Moby Dick. I think I've been talking about it on Chatting with Nuts for like 2 or 3 years now. I probably just need to read the damn thing. I thought about maybe trying to start it this next week, but I have 3 books that I'm definitely reading in February, if not 4. So February feels already too structured. So I'm probably going to back off on that for sure. Daniel says, you're still mood reading with hard determinism. You just don't direct that mood. But even hardcore free will proponents aren't going to claim they choose their moods usually. Yeah, I kind of see what you're saying. I like that. Oh, neat. Apparently the Neuromancer audiobook is really good. Someone give me like a pitch for Neuromancer and why I should read it in like 3 sentences or less. Don't send a book, because I got to read it out loud, and I suck at reading out loud. So send like 2 to 3 sentences. Somebody type up why Neuromancer is something I should read soon. Key here says Neuromancer is my favorite sci-fi novel. I highly recommend it. That's a pretty good pitch, but give me a little more. Just give me a little more. Tolstoy, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I still need to finish Anna Karenina. I started it, got a really good ways in, and just haven't picked it back up. Not because I didn't like it, but because it kind of fell to the wayside. So yeah, Tolstoy is always something I'm interested in. Once I finish Anna Karenina, I will probably do War and Peace. Also, is Tolstoy spelled like this, Sai? Because I saw someone linked a book. Actually, it was Mitch, my friend Mitch, and he had it. It was like written or edited by Tolstoy's great niece or something. It's a Russian translated work, sci-fi, I think. And her name was spelled O-I instead of O-Y. Is this how Tolstoy's actually spelled? I've heard Murakami's Norwegian Wood is very polarizing. Yes, that's the Murakami one. Hard-boiled Wonderland. Wonderland. I always say hard-boiled egg in the end of the world, and people are like, "What are you talking about?" Like, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's hard-boiled Wonderland and the end of the world. Larry McMurtry. I remember. I don't know how to say his name. Maybe. I feel like I have something from him on my shelves, but I'm not positive. Beck says my year of rest and relaxation. I was surprised you had read that. Yeah, Otessa Moshfegh is how you say her name. I really like this book. I mean, there are things about it that made me cringe. Sometimes it felt a little bit edgy, but like as a whole, especially with the ending, I think it just captured like a place in time and how a certain event like changed things. I really like that book. I don't know if I would like it as much on a reread, but I don't know that for a fact because a lot of it was just trying to see what dark, depraved areas the book was going to go to next. And, you know, it is a little bit edgy, but I'm okay with a little bit of edge every now and then. But I really enjoyed it. I really did. There's times where I am very into people being terrible and wanting to read about it. And also just, you know, obviously that character is going through some severe things. But who hasn't wanted to take an entire year of a drug-induced coma? Don't we all? Oh, Fantasy Fanatic. I finished The Pillars of the Earth last week and absolutely adored it. One of my new favorite books of all time. I wish I could say the same. I wish I liked it that much. Yeah, I'll read it again one day. I'll read it. What is it? Fall of Giants? That's the one I'm more interested in from him, to be honest. Zelia Green says, will you be reading more Octavia Butler this year? 100%. 100%. Yep. Whenever I start pulling up the books and show them to you guys, you'll see that she's on that list. Probably in the top 3 authors I'm most excited to read more from. Lonesome Dove's one of those books I've been talking about for a long time, and I'll continue to talk about it because I don't have any immediate plans to read it. And I'll probably only read book 1. I know it's a series, but it's pretty long, isn't it? No, Flannery O'Connor, Jimbo, other way around. No, I was just doing it properly. I don't know. I'm bad. Noah Guy, any Steinbeck this year? If it is, it's going to be East of Eden. I'm going to try Clara in the Sun by Ishiguro this year, hopefully. I've heard unanimous praise for this guy. And I mean, he's also won a Nobel Prize. So I guess it's not that surprising. You know what's weird? It's like, I feel like until the last 2 years, I'd never really heard about anyone winning the Nobel Prize for literature. Like, I did not know who J.M. Coetzee was. I didn't know Ishiguro. And these people are like renowned writers. Obviously, they're acknowledged for their accomplishments, but definitely probably the literary fiction writer I'm most excited to read this year, I would say. All right. It says, what's a book that you really want to read but are almost afraid to start it? That's a great question. Because I feel like a lot of books don't feel that intimidating anymore, but there are ones that are still out there. I'll tell you what it is. Actually, I know exactly what it is. This is a good question. Terra Ignota by Ada Palmer. Because I just finished Book of the New Sun, and I am still confused by a lot of stuff in it. I loved my experience with Book of the New Sun. It's definitely in a top 10 favorite series for me, for sure. I loved it. I'll reread it. I'm going to read more from the solar cycle. And everyone has told me that Terra Ignata is like, she pays huge homage to Gene Wolfe, and she wrote a beautiful foreword for Book of the New Sun. But I've just heard that it's dense. It's just like Book of the New Sun in the sense that it's dense. I think they're completely different series, I would imagine. But she's probably going to play with a lot of the stuff that Gene Wolfe also did. And I'm afraid to start it. I'm going to this year, but I'm also afraid to start it because one is dense, and anytime something's dense, it makes you just hope that you get it and that you're smart enough. For instance, like Infinite Jest, I legitimately don't think I'm smart enough to read that book. But I'm also just nervous because I want to like it so much. I've had friends, that won their book of the year, and people are in my patron Discord love this series. So I'm a little afraid. I'm afraid. I don't know what to expect either. I've pretty much stayed in the dark completely about Terra Ignata. Hopefully that's a good thing. Hopefully. So that's probably the series, which, by the way, the first book is called Too Like the Lightning. I fall asleep to audiobook rereads. That might not be the bad. That might be a bad idea. Eric says, no, it's amazing. Best podcast ever. Thank you. I very, very, very much appreciate it. Mesmerin, hopefully I'm saying that right. Have you considered to jump back into weird genre books like China Mieville's or other authors? Yes. Weave World by Clive Barker is one that I don't have on like my immediate, like I'm going to read this year, but it's one that could absolutely sneak in. Imagica is also one that's up there. Clive Barker is someone that I really want to check out more of, for sure. Noah says, I fall asleep to speedruns too. Also chatting with nuts until Alan comes on. Yes, being awoken by Alan screaming is probably quite the experience. Luis, thank you. Says it's almost 1 a.m. here in Portugal. Can confirm I'm in bed and will fall asleep to this live stream. You know what? Sleep's important. Sleep hygiene is super important. So if I am your NyQuil, I will take up that shield. I will take up that banner and represent it proudly. Okay, a lot of people apparently fall asleep to my stuff. Yeah, Kev. My wife is going to. Kelsey is her name. Kelsey is going to read Demon Copperhead for sure. I recommended Demon Copperhead to Andrew, which if you guys never checked out that episode with Andrew, he's my best friend in real life, and we did my first ever in-person chatting with nuts with him, and I got him to read Demon Copperhead. He loved it. I think it might be his favorite book of all time. It's like that and Lies of Locke Lamora, which everyone told him he would love in the live stream, by the way, which was great. He got everyone in his job to read Demon Copperhead. There's like 5 or 6 people that he's a manager of. He's like, you all have to read Demon Copperhead. They loved it. And everyone like came back in and were like talking about it. And some of them were different ages. And I thought that was really interesting because it's very much like a millennial or a Gen X story. But I think it's really relatable no matter what age you are. And that's what Demon Copperhead like excels at. It doesn't lean too heavy on that time period. There are little Easter eggs and stuff that you'll like, I know that, but any age gap, universal themes is what I'm trying to get at. Struggles that have transcended decades, but have been going on for, way longer than that. And it is really cool. Demon Copperhead is like one of those books that I recommend pretty hardcore. Like I feel good about recommending it. It's not going to be everyone's bag because it's slow and a bit methodical. And it's about, a certain place in America that maybe not everyone else finds interesting. But for most of the people in my real life, they did grow up in that area. So it's really cool whenever people read that stuff and love it. So Kelsey will definitely be reading it. Kelsey will probably be on the channel sooner rather than later. I mean, she's making her way through Realm of the Otherlings, and when she's done, I'm going to bring her on, and then we're going to discuss the whole series together. Jesse's Journey says, have you read any Paolo Bacigalupi? I'm sorry if I'm an idiot. The Wind-Up Girl. No, I haven't ever heard of this, but wait. Okay, I was making sure it wasn't this one book here that I have that I always forget the author of, but no, I've not heard of this. I would like to know more, though. I listen to Chatting with Butts at work. You're cutting into my audiobook time. I'm sorry. God, isn't she an icon? Hey, Ryan, thank you. He says, no time to watch, but going to leave a comment and like. It's very, very kind of you. Yeah, so reading with Rebecca Nicole says, I kind of want to go to Dragonsteel just because of all the booktubers who go. Yeah, so this is the thing about Dragonsteel. I feel I like some of what Sanderson does. I also don't like some of what Sanderson does. And I feel like I'm going to be a Dragonsteel, and I am not going to be able to hold back the tides of being a contrarian. So I really want to go just to meet people. That's really what it's about for me. But I feel like book 5 drops at this thing. And I think everyone's just going to go to their hotel room and want to read. And I'm going to be wanting to socialize. Or they're going to be talking about the book. And I'm not reading while I'm there. Like, not a chance. So I'm a little nervous that it's just going to be this weird experience for me. But I also would love to go and meet people like Bookborn that I've never got to meet in real life, who I consider real friends. So I'm up in the air, but this is kind of my same motivation for this as well. Todd's Booktube says, hey, Jimmy, I went to get into Gygax K because of your videos. I want to read Jezebel. Have you heard of the author Justin Cronin? Yeah, Justin Cronin, I believe, is the one that wrote The Passage, and I actually have that book downstairs, and it's one of those books that has been new in my radar, but moved really far up my TBR just because of the people who recommended it, like my friend Kevin Bridger, have said really, really good things about it, and I think I would like it a lot. Eric says, free will does not exist. I think that's what I think too sometimes. But I'm a fence sitter on it, kind of. Andre says an audiobook for Moby Dick would be the perfect sleep aid. Cyberpunk 2077 is based on the same world from Neuromancer. Very cool. Yeah, so this is the problem. I know a lot of people are saying, it's the origin of Cyberpunk. I don't really like Cyberpunk that much, which is probably why it hasn't climbed to the very top of my TBR. So, and Rogue says Neuromancer can be skipped. I haven't scrolled down yet, but I hope no one's being too mean. Charlie says, hey, Jimmy, have you read Blake Crouch? His book Upgrade is phenomenal. I own Dark Matter, and I have not read it. That's going to be one of those mood read, just throw it in, because they're like, 300 pages, and they're really fast. I've seen people like love Blake Crouch, and then there's people who absolutely hate Blake Crouch. So I'll be kind of curious I think most people, let me just put it this way. Most people love Blake Crouch, but the people who hate Blake Crouch really, when I say hate him, hate his books, really hate his books. So I'll be curious to see where I land up. I imagine I'll probably enjoy it. Jimmy, you should read Gilead by Mary Lynn Robinson. Her prose style is similar to McCarthy, and the book won the Pulitzer around the same time as The Road. I have it downstairs. It is on not the immediate list, but it's on the short list. And the premise of it sounds really, really interesting. Andrew Lombardo says, being a Giga Chad, how much water do you intake in a day? Honestly, I don't really keep track. I know whenever I have enough. But I would say, it's close to a gallon, what normal people do, but it depends on if I do 2 jiu-jitsu classes in a row, then I have to drink way more. I have been drinking liquid IVs lately. I've been kind of on that train, and I've been enjoying it. I don't know if the science behind it, I don't know anything. I'm not saying I do, but I've been enjoying liquid IVs. I like the flavor. And I've been trying to drink a lot more water because I'm on a bulk right now. It's pretty much coming to an end this week. And I feel like whenever I'm dehydrated and bloated, like with food, I feel the worst. So I try to drink a lot of water all the time. I drink at least 2 massive shakerfuls while I work out, if not 3. I think it's more important to like front load water in the day, honestly. Eric McLuhan says Neuromancer is what Otherland tried to be, but 2,000 pages shorter. Oh, poor Otherland. By the way, I am not continuing Otherland. I know there are people who really like the series and have told me, they're excited I was reading it, but book two slowed me to a stop. And then I had one friend or 2 friends that went on to read book 3 and 4. And they were like, I don't think the things that you disliked about book 2 are going to get any better. So at this point, it's on pause indefinitely. You could probably say it was a DNF. So Adam Borsch says, I read 3 or 4 Murakami books over 10 years ago. Started with Wind Up Bird Chronicle. At that time, those books blew my mind. There is some stuff in Wind Up Bird Chronicle that did blow my mind. And I think that the vastness underneath of like what's on the page is kind of, I mean, it's kind of awe-inspiring in some ways of all the things that he decides to tackle with such a weird story that doesn't have like the most concrete plot. Would people consider Murakami to be postmodern? Because I feel like, and postmodern is a very tough thing to nail down in my mind, and I'm not a huge fan of the description. But whenever I finished Wind Up Bird Chronicle, I was like, I bet you this is on a list of postmodern books. I haven't Googled it yet. I might be wrong, but I have a feeling that's true. But yes, there are things about the Murakami book that did really indeed blow my mind. He has a couple things about his writing that I'm not huge on, and it's also hard to attribute beautiful writing whenever there's a translator. I don't know enough about the process, and I don't know enough about it to say for, with confidence that his writing is beautiful. But I think the translator did a nice job because it didn't feel like a translated work. Any plans to read Eileen? Yes. And Lapbona. What's your favorite space opera? Not too big into hard sci-fi, but love it. So I don't know everything that I'm gonna be honest here. And remember, I'm an idiot with a microphone. I don't know what things qualify as space opera, because sometimes I've called things space opera and then I get people who know way more about sci-fi tell me I'm wrong. So I'm just going to pick a safe answer here, and I'm probably forgetting one that's like better than it, but I really like The Expanse. Like, I love the TV show. I didn't watch the last season because I want to finish the books. I know the books go past the TV show. But I've read books 1 and 2, and I really had a great time with them. I know a lot of people say the series is just like the definition of mid. I don't really care. I like the books. I think they're really fun. I like Daniel Abraham and Frank's writing. I think Abraham's the A side of that equation. But like, I don't know. For me, probably The Expanse, at least 2 books in and having watched it 90% of the show at this point. I have so much to catch up on. Mason says, with your wrestling background, which character have you read that would make a great pro wrestler? I imagine Wirrun of Bly from First Law. Yeah, I think that this is interesting. Glokta is also one of those characters that I think can be really expanded upon in different roles and different mediums, because you're taking someone who is looking at life through a very different lens, and not just because they have a different philosophy, but because of their physical attribute. Like, their physical existence is different than other people's. And I think that's a way to connect with people who feel that way and live life that way. But it's also a new way of putting spin on some of the older stories and stuff. So I feel like Glokta could have worked really well. But obviously you would need somebody special to do that. Like someone who really could speak to that existence, right? Pro wrestlers. I mean, it's tough because a lot of stuff's so over the top, right? Really anybody from First Law. I know that's kind of a cop-out answer, but that's going to be it. Oh, Eerie Fairy Tale says, I read Pillars 10 years ago and inspired a poem of mine. Very interesting. Some people are saying whenever I mentioned, going into a drug stupor for a year is like, they have experience with that, which is wild. Penny, I know you said Lonesome Dove is no longer than anything else you read, Jimmy. Well, that might be true, but I've been reading way shorter books lately, and I'm kind of an anti-series guy right now. I've been trying to cut back on the series, but I hear what you're saying. And if I love book 1, I will continue. But I do know that I could read book 1 and be happy with that, which is nice. It's not the length of Lonesome Dove itself. It's the series that is a bit hard to fit in. I have not read the Prydain Chronicles by Lloyd Alexander, and I don't know anything about this. So that's another one I'll have to look up. I like highlighting these comments because I can go back and watch and then write things down, which is very nice. At some point, I'm going to have to start pulling out these books, but I'm having fun answering everyone's questions. Interesting. StoryTube says Blood Meridian is a painting. Lonesome Dove is the HBO show. I like both of those things. Actually, I usually like HBO more than paintings. Yeah, Gravity's Rainbow is definitely one of those. Gene Wolfe, yeah. StoryTube says, "Don't worry, Jimmy. David Foster Wallace wasn't even smart enough to write that book." Speaking of infinite jest, which is pretty damn funny, honestly. We were speaking about the weird genre earlier, and Beltube says he's reading Weave World right now. I'll be very curious to see what you think of that. Hayden Lyle says, "Jimmy, deviate from books for a second. What are some of your favorite albums to listen to?" I'm not a big music listener anymore. I pretty much only listen to music now whenever I work out, which the music I listen to when I work out and the music that I would like sit down and like listen to, from beginning to end are very, very different. I mean, Get Rich or Die Trying by 50 Cent is still a banger, folks. Just saying. Mitch asks, "Are you still planning to finally releasing some top 10 all-time videos this year?" Yes, I am. This year, I will do my top 10 authors. And then I may do my top 10 fantasy series. I feel like the top 10 fantasy series is pretty easy for people to put together, but I guess there are some random ones that I've read recently. Book of the New Sun was like one of the big series that I wanted to read before making a top 10 list. And I know that people release them and they update them every year, and that's cool. But for me, I really wanted to have a bigger sample size. And my sample size still isn't big enough, right? Like, there are people like, for instance, Library Ladder, who has read probably, I don't know, 5 or 10,000 books in his life. Cause he has some time on me, of course, but I think hearing a top 10 from someone who's read a lot more is always interesting because you get a bigger sample size. Or a pool to pick from. Book of the New Sun was one of the final ones where I was like, I need to read that before I make my top 10 series just to make sure. So maybe it'll be a top 5 to make it a little harder on myself. But I do know that I have some in my top 10 off the top of my head that I think would make the cut that aren't going to be in a lot of other people's top 10s. And I think the order might surprise some people as well. So I would say definitely my top 10 authors of all time list is coming, and possibly my top 10 series of all time. Authors is tough because a lot of people who watch my channel want fantasy. And it's weird for me to like Daniel Abraham, the J.M. Coetzee. Like, how do I balance those things? I've read way more from Daniel Abraham, but I think Coetzee is like so powerful with one book I've read from him. Those are random examples from the top of my head. Not that those two are actually in conflict in my head, but just authors will be interesting to see. Kate H says, "Could you touch on what some sci-fi elements of Book of the New Sun are? I've been wanting to read it, but for some reason shy away from sci-fi elements and fantasy. I have no explanation as to why." So I don't want to give away too much stuff, but there is as much sci-fi as something that you would have read, in the genre. I would say time is a big thing. Random other things, but it is still a fantasy book as well. I mean, that's the thing. Gene Wolfe mashed the two together beautifully, just like Jack Vance did. Gene Wolfe, I think, did it better, at least from the bit I've read from Jack Vance. So I know that's not a great answer, but a lot of that stuff is like things that you'll have to find out. The best thing you can do is just give it a go. I mean, the books aren't super duper long. There's a lot of podcasts that help out with some of the things. Some of the sci-fi elements you won't even realize are happening as you read, which is one of my favorite parts about it, I would say. I keep thinking I'm almost caught up, and then I see that we're talking about I see that we're talking about Demon Copperhead, which was like 20 minutes ago. Benjamin says, "I feel like Jimmy will break Brandon's hand when they shake." Brandon, I don't think Brandon Sanderson would have any interest in meeting me or talking to me. I couldn't imagine. I'm too silly, I think. Faisal, what's up? Says, "Was wondering, did you get to read Book of the New Sun Book 3? Yes, I just finished Book of the New Sun 2 days ago. I finished all of it. Earth of the New Sun, I'm going to read next, but the first 4. Book of the New Sun, Book 3 was my favorite of the 4, even though Book 4 has the craziest things because it's the revelations and the ending. But like cover to cover, Sword of the Lictor is my favorite Book of the New Sun book. Jimmy, how are you feeling health-wise these days? Had me worry a few months back. You deserve health and happiness. P.S. Happy you tried a Murakami book. Me living here in Murakami land, Japan. Yeah. And I know I gave it 3 stars, but like it's a really good 3 stars because I have so much there's so much to think and talk about with that Murakami book. And I knew whenever I gave it 3, people were going to be like, oh, he didn't like it. That's not true. There's elements I didn't like, but as a whole, I think it's a really interesting piece of literature. And health-wise, as far as physical health, my staph infection seems to be gone, which is fantastic. I can't tell you how good that is. And then mental health-wise, like dealing with depression, it's a daily thing, trying to balance those things out. I think with the staff being regressed and me being able to do the things that I want to do and feeling good about those things, I think that it has dramatically helped in the battle of fighting depression, but it's never a thing where it's like gone, right? I don't want to get too morbid, but like I could be sitting and typing a line of code at work and be like, never mind. I'm not going to go here. It's a constant battle, but right now I feel pretty decent. The biggest thing for me, and I'm not going to get like super personal or anything, but is like for about 6 to 8 months, I've been feeling like I need to make a change, but I don't know what that is. And I know that sounds like nebulous and kind of aimless, but I know. But sometimes you just know that something needs to change, but I don't know what that thing is yet. And I kind of want some new challenges. I think part of this has to do with my job being a little bit slow. And also trying to figure out like why am I doing this on a live? Let's talk about books. Trying to figure out who I want to be in my 30s and 40s. Maybe it's just playing Call of Duty and screaming at teenagers. I don't know. Jared Henderson, instead launch your own convention. NutCon. No book releases, no panels, just a party. I've thought about doing a Booktube con many, many times before. Many, many times before. Alan says no one likes cyberpunk. Cyber suck, am I right? I'm so sad that I got to this so far. Kev says steampunk is top 2 worst aesthetics of all time, and it ain't. Oh my goodness. Oh man, people are going back and forth. What's up, Nuclear Katie? Good to see you. Very, very good to see you. I'm going through here. If I end up missing anything, let me know. Mike J says, what's your take on Sam Sulek? So if people don't know who Sam Sulek is, he is the largest weightlifting YouTuber in the world now, I think. And he's a dude that's going to college for engineering, and he's out there doing bro lifts, ego lifts, certainly on tons of rocket fuel. He's on that shit that makes your head grow. But I think Sam has a lot of stuff right and then a lot of stuff wrong. And I think there's clearly, things that people probably should not. I don't think anyone's under the illusion that he's not on gear, right? No, probably like 5 people care about this in the chat, but I watch Sam Sulek, funny enough, and I feel motivated watching him, which is really cool. Brendan Park says, what do you weigh Jimmy seeing as you mentioned bulking? I bulked up and I'm like, my highest, I was almost 220. So like, I'm like 215 right now, and I'll cut back down to probably 200 or 195. And if I want to compete in jiu-jitsu, I'll have to go down to 185, most likely. But I feel good. I mean, I haven't done a legitimate bulk for lifting in a very long time. And I got to be honest, it was pretty awesome. Oh, so if someone tells you they are new to fantasy, what are a couple book series you would recommend to them? This is going to sound really strange, but I always recommend The Wheel of Time for people. I know that sounds strange because I'm not the biggest fan, but like I feel like The Wheel of Time does a lot of stuff that like people think fantasy does, and then it kind of ends up doing its own thing at times. And even though it's massive, right? You don't have to finish it. And I think it actually might even be a good experience because either they are going to finish and then they're immune to like the series length thing, right? Because you finish Wheel of Time, or they're going to DNF it and then they can realize that it's okay. Other than that, I don't know. I think A Song of Ice and Fire is still a great place to start. I'm trying to think of standalones. It just depends on the person, though. You know what I mean? It's really tough to have a catch-all for people. I'm not going to sit there and recommend Assassin's Apprentice to every single person because there's some people who are not going to be able to put up with the pacing, right? Or they don't like first person stories, which is totally fair. Alan says he considers Murakami to be snooze modern. Okay, Murakami isn't postmodern. Okay. Like I said, I figured I was probably wrong. So what's up, Taylor? Good to see you. If anyone's greeted me and I missed you, I apologize. Terrence says, Jimmy, you must read Terra Ignota. I will. Don't worry. Sun Eater is a space opera, but I don't think Sun Eater is my favorite space opera. I love books 1, 2, and 3. Like, I love them so much. But books 4 and 5, while I still enjoyed them, I enjoyed them significantly less than books 1 through 3 for various reasons. And I'm also in the minority of that. I don't think anyone agrees with me besides, like, I don't know if anyone does. But for me, I still like Sun Eater, but I just didn't like 4 and 5 as much. Okay, so Key says Murakami is definitely more postmodern compared to most Japanese authors that came before him, like Yukio Mishima, who you should read. I have a book from Mishima downstairs, actually. Life for Sale, is that him? I might be getting it wrong. Oh, Krupp is a pro wrestler. I like that. So a lot of people recommending Alistair Reynolds in the chat as well. Hyperion. Okay, so Neutral 10 says, I just read Hyperion and liked it, but I'm not too sure about reading The Fall of Hyperion due to the mixed reception. Any thoughts? You should always experience things for yourself. I understand, what we do on Booktube or in book communities and stuff is to try to curate a list, right, of things that you want to read and things that might be good. And you try to figure out whose taste you align with or don't align with and then go from there. But at the end of the day, if you're ever conflicted, you should just try it. You should just give it a go, because if you read 10 pages and decide like, oh, this is not what I should be reading, you can always quit. I've heard good things about Fall of Hyperion. I've heard it's a little bit more conventional sci-fi, whereas like Hyperion kind of plays with the Canterbury Tales like format. I have not read book 2, not because I don't want to, but I just simply haven't got to it. And also Hyperion was just so good by itself that I've never felt the need to continue, but I probably will one day. So I will always encourage people to try it for themselves. There are books that I do not like. There are books I outright almost hate, and I'll still tell people they should give it a go. I'm not one to think that we should give up the opportunity to have an opinion on a work for ourselves, right? So I say go for it. Dark One's Taint says, when are you going to read Shogun, Jimmy? Never. I can't say never, never say never. Most likely never. How about that? David Mitchell is very postmodern. Yeah, see, I have no idea. I have no idea what postmodern really means then. Some days I feel like I get it, but I don't know. Derry says, highlighted comments are the ones you write down. What about all the rest of the comments? Are we typing into the void, Jimmy? No. It's just easier to highlight those things. I miss great comments all the time, and I do apologize. This show has grown exponentially, and having 150 to 200 people is a lot different than back when it was like 40 to 50 people. And I'm super thankful for that. But unfortunately, sometimes I do end up missing comments, which sucks, right? And Get Rich or Die Trying is a certified classic. It's fantastic. Luis says, what video games or games are you currently playing? So I'm playing Call of Duty in ranked and getting smacked by teenagers. And I've been playing Lies of P, which is a Souls-like video game. And man, it is really, really, really good. The further I get into it, the more I'm starting to accept the fact that it really is possibly going to be like one of the best Souls games, period. And I kind of went into Lies of P with my arms folded, if I'm being honest with you. I kind of wanted to be like, whatever. It's mimicry. It's fine. It's really good. It's really, really good. I love Souls games. They're my favorite. All right, let's see. Noah Guy says, Jimmy, I'm a couple chapters into the Hugo section in Bone Clocks. Do I need to trust the process? Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you're miserable, DNF it. But I think get through Hugo, start the next one. And then if at that point you're not really feeling it, then it might not work for you. David Mitchell's stuff is like really, he's one of those guys that falls into that 3-star range on Goodreads because people either love it or hate it. I love the way that the vignettes kind of intertwine as the story goes on, and then it comes to this really great ending, in my opinion. So of course I think the process is worth it, but you'll know if it's not going to work for you. I'm not going to tell you to read like 80% of the book and then decide. So weekly top 10s. David says, I got to do those top 10 series from my favorite booktubers to get your subs up, Jimmy. I don't understand some of this. Like, I don't understand. I did have someone approach me, this probably a year ago, and they were like, can you do like your favorite series or it was some favorite. And I was like, I've never done that on my channel. So no, because like I've been waiting to do that on my channel. And I don't just want to, it's like whenever at the end of the year, everyone was just giving away their top book of the year. And I'm like, I guess I don't need to watch any of your videos because I know what won your top book of the year. Save it for yourself. It's weird. It's like, there's like a conglomerate now. It's like to see Philip's book, favorite book, or somebody else, like you don't even have to go to their channel. You just go to somebody else's channel now. It's like they're curated. It's strange. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying I don't necessarily get it. Daniel says, where's Rage of Dragons in the top 10, Jimmy? It's not in the top 10. It's not in the top 10. I'm sorry. Yes, I am very far behind the chat. That's just how it is. Rebecca says, books that you reread and best books ever aren't always the same. That is true. Sometimes you catch lightning in a bottle and you can never capture that again with that book. That's 100%. Beltu, please send me the interview with Gene Wolfe, because I have been watching a lot of stuff with him and I enjoy listening to that dude talk. Mesmerin says, if you like hard sci-fi, Jimmy, I would recommend you Blind Sight. Yeah, I've read Blind Sight. It barely missed my top 12 books of the year last year. I think Peter Watts is fascinating, and I just bought his debut with, what's it called? I can't remember what it's called. It's Peter Watts' debut, and it's a sci-fi about the deep ocean, which I think the ocean's fascinating. We know less about the ocean and space. That's like, everybody says that now. But it's kind of true. So I'm very, very excited to see what I can find. Let's see. Okay, my book of the new sun intrigue is increased. Well, I'm glad. I'm very, very glad. Peter Watts is awesome. He's also a very angry guy, and I love the way he expresses himself. Gary says, fingers crossed by the time Jimmy gets to this comment, he's still staff free. Yeah, we're good. I don't have any holes in my chest. The changes that I need to visit me in Florida. I really do. I was hoping that maybe I could get down there before. How about I just drop from the stream there? Sorry about that. Oh my God. I'm so far behind now. I'm so upset. I'm sorry, everybody. My mouse has this button on it. I have this new mouse and I keep hitting it. So I lost a ton of the comments, which I'm sorry about. Wheel of Time is a terrible place to start. Fair enough. I know someone mentioned Wolf Hall. My gear to main 225 is mega stuffed Oreos. Steve, how are you? How are you doing, dude? I disagree about Wheel of Time. Fair enough. Eye of the World is way too slow. That's what I'm saying. Like, it depends on the person, right? Like, you can't just, I don't have a blanket one. I really don't. A Wizard for Earthsea is a perfect entry for fantasy. I think it's a great entry for some people, but some people would say it's a little bit too young, possibly, right? Oh no, people are fighting about Wheel of Time. I'm so mad that I backed out of the stream. Man, when you do it live, it's just how it is, right? I thought it ended the stream, and I was literally like so upset. Hey, Paul, finally somebody agrees with me. And Adam also says he agrees with me. Okay, I'm feeling a little less bad. So for first-time readers, probably not Thomas Covenant then. Sir. Sir, absolutely not. I tapped out on Thomas Covenant twice, and it's slow. Okay. And I like Tad Williams, Remember Son of Thorn. It's slow, man. Kev says Jimmy picking Expanse because 10 mid books. I didn't say they're mid. I said other people think they're mid. I love the first 2 books of The Expanse. I'm sorry. Culture series is. Hayward says Fall of Hyperion is one of the worst books I've read. I didn't know people felt like that about it. I had no idea. I thought it was pretty well liked, but I guess I'm wrong. Oh, Mike J says Sam is my favorite fitness YouTuber. Really, him and Rob Bailey are the ones I can stomach at this point. Sam is obviously on gear, but the way he dumbs everything now is right up my alley. Yeah, he does. Maybe by accident, but he gets stuff right. I don't like Rob Bailey very much, but what the hell do I know? I saw Dana Lynn Bailey trying to say she's natural. Absolutely ridiculous. So ridiculous. The amount of people in the fitness sphere that are just lying constantly is crazy. It's crazy. I'm not even gonna keep going. Fantasy Watch says, I am reading Bone Clocks, Jimmy, and it is weird AF. Yes, that's why I like it so much. It's so well put together. Ugh, I love it. Andre says, someone write a book about a guy alone in a ship lost in space, reading Murakami and bulking as he tries to stay fit and healthy for whatever happens. There's plenty of writers in the chat. I'm sure someone can do it, right? Kai says, Sun Eater is just a whole different kind of space opera compared to Expanse. Expanse deals with much more physics of space travel, smaller scale. See, and this is the thing, like, I'm not the biggest sci-fi guy, so, like, I don't feel like I know what, is this like the grimdark conversation we have in fantasy all the time where people are like, A Song of Ice and Fire is in grimdark now, and then people are like, no, it always was, and then people try to tell me that, like, Mistborn has grimdark, and I'm like, the point is some of it just doesn't matter anymore, is that kind of how space opera is? Oh, this is a great one. Jacob Paget says, what plot line are you looking forward to most in the Winds of Winter? I'm most excited for the Wall Winterfell plot. Same. That's probably the one I'm most excited for. I'm sure I could be talked into another one of the storylines, but without a doubt, Stannis the Manus' storyline finishing up and how that works out. Like, I would love to know, because I do think that is going to be very, very different. Carl says The Expanse kind of straddles the gap between space opera and hard sci-fi. Other than the proto-molecule and the drive system they use, it all pretty much scientifically accurate. I've heard some people complain about stuff in the later books, but I haven't read them. But I've heard some people like roll their eyes at stuff. But it doesn't have to be my, it doesn't have to be perfect for me. Jimmy's top 10 has 15 and counting. Listen, the top 10 authors, I said this before. I counted. I've said it 20 times, and I've never said that. I've said some people are definitely in them, and I meant that. But there's people I'm saying could make my top 10. It's like whenever I talked about Barbara Kingsolver and David Mitchell, people are like, oh, like they're in your top 10. How many are your top 10? I'm like, I never said they were my top 10. I said if it continues, they have the opportunity to end up in my top 10. They could end up being in there. Obviously, Eric, you're not saying that. I'm just stating for the record. KO 3232, I think. Hi, Jimmy. How often and for how long do you read? I'm not the quickest reader, and I would like to actually spend more time reading, but how do you schedule your time for it? So, I would say I read every day, mostly. I mean, there are days where maybe I don't read something, but it's very rare. And I listen to an audiobook on the way from my house to the gym, which is very short. And then I stretch anywhere between 20 to 30 minutes every day. And while I stretch, I usually listen to an audiobook as well. I sometimes can get about 30 minutes to an hour of reading before work. Sometimes if I take a break midday, I can read like another 30 minutes or so. Depends. Sometimes I'll scroll on my phone. And then at night, I try. It depends. Lately, I haven't been doing it as much, but I will read at night for 2 hours. But lately, it's been more like 45 minutes. And that's what I do. And it's a great way to start my day. And it's a great way to end my day. And it keeps me thinking about a story. And I find also that it kind of helps. I don't know. It puts me in a good mood usually, even if I'm reading like a really depraved thing, which I usually am reading something existentialist or whatever that makes me feel bad. Steve Donahue says, my favorite science fiction story is set in 2031. The plot, Jimmy catches up on the chat. Steve, that was pretty good. Steve, you're a funny guy. I feel like I haven't talked to you in a while, man. People are saying catching up to where he's so far behind now. Oh, man. Carl, your first adult Facebook was Perdido Street Station. That is crazy. And Sam, the ending of the Book of the New Sun was amazing. Sword of the Lictor is the best. I would agree with both of those. I mean, the ending of Book of the New Sun, I haven't stopped thinking about it since I finished it, and there's still so many questions, and I'm going to read Earth of the New Sun way sooner than expected, probably in the next month or two, I would say. Yes, Steve, that I agree. As someone who loves working out and loves fitness and loves any kind of physical activity, and I encourage it, and I think people should be aware of their health and active with it. I literally can't engage. I'm not engaged. In fact, the only person I watch is Sam Sulek, and it was by accident. And it's almost like a phenomenon. Like, you got to just watch what's happening. And there is something, I will say this, there's something about him, you know, there could be negatives and positives, but it's really interesting that a guy can just take a camera and be himself and document it, and millions of people watching. I think it's very, very interesting. I even was, wanting to do reading vlogs, and I was like, what if I just was the Sam Sulek of Booktube without like the gear, of course. That would be interesting, right? I'm sure everyone's thought of that at some point. Paul says, is it weird that I found the bone clock's not weird? I guess it just depends. I think for me, Paul, the thing that made it kind of weird is like, I don't read a lot of magical realism, or as it should be called, just fantasy, urban fantasy in our world. So for that, and I do think that Mitchell, when he does a lot of the match stuff, especially towards the back end of the book, it's just kind of like there. And it takes a while for me to kind of acclimate, and then wondering about like where this is all taking place, what it is, that kind of stuff. Dana Lynn Bailey is not. It's absolutely ridiculous. Fantasy Watch says, Jimmy, were you hooked from the beginning of Bone Clocks, or do you feel it warrants such strong praise really due to the ending? No, I was immediately hooked. Honestly, I don't. The more I've gotten to know you, Laura, I don't think you're going to like it. I think it'll probably be a DNF for you, or if you make it through, I don't think you'll probably be as high on it. But this is one of those books that is just. He's one of these authors that a lot of people think he's not great. I think he's great, but so Ryan prefers Sun Eater to The Expanse. I imagine most of my viewers probably prefer Sun Eater. Labels, sick of labels. Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. We got some love for Stannis in the chat. Love to see it. And then some hate for Stannis as well, which is really funny. Is Stannis the most polarizing character? Like, I know there are people out there like, I hate Jon Snow or I hate the Daenerys chapters, but I feel like Stannis evokes some sort of like visceral response from the fan. From the fandom. It's crazy. Books of Bangus Constance, I would have the same issue with the top 10 authors vid. No clue how to mix the sci-fi with the sci-fi fantasy with lit fic faves. Yeah, for me, I almost want to make them two different, but like at the same time, like, why split them up? Why don't we just put them head to head and see what happens? Because I don't think there's a hierarchy of those two things. They're just, different audiences for the most part. Belltube says he's doing Earth of the New Sun in March. Honestly, it could be March for me as well, because February is a bit of a shorter month, though it is leap year, which is really cool. But Roxy Gopp Jenkins says, have you ever read or heard By Force Alone by Levi Tidhar? It's basically grimdark King Arthur. I think you dig it. I have not heard of this at all. Is this a self-pub book? How do you get such good lighting that doesn't reflect in your glasses? I struggle with lighting so much. Listen, this is the bane of existence because I'm very particular about things and the way they look and sound. Like, there's far too much glare on my forehead right now. I also have this big old zit right here. But if you see when I look up, I have a reflection off my glasses. So if you are someone who's filming yourself and you want to get rid of the glare, put them above 45 degrees, aiming downward. That's the best way to go. You're gonna have to play with it because, like, depending on your room, depending on the lights, you might get shadows on your face, which I really hate. As you can see, I have shadows right here, and it sometimes looks like I have a black eye. That is just something I've had to accept with this new setup. It never was like that in my old house, and I miss that setup. Jimmy, can you catch live at some point Bookburn's reaction to the pace theory? I will bring her on once she has finished this series again. Steve Donahue and me agreeing on a fantasy book. You got mark it down. Now we agree on a lot more than we disagree on. I think The Bone Clocks is loved. That makes me happy. One of the few. Interesting. Paul says, I think it's because my autism wasn't yet diagnosed. So for me, the world is already so weird. So Bone Clocks was just okay. So nothing's really that different. That's a really interesting perspective. I wonder how that, yeah. I hadn't really thought about that for people who have autism, like viewing the world through such a different lens that maybe that magical realism, I'm not saying that magic realism exists for them, but like it's already so weird that throwing in some magic in there isn't that big of a deal. It's interesting. Carl says, I grew up in a household with sci-fi loving parents who hated fantasy. I wasn't exposed to fantasy as a child or even a teen. As a result, medieval was a good transition to genre as a result. David Mitchell has the same problem I have with a lot of British authors. Their nationality. My apologies to all my British people. Mitch is a lover of British people, and he's kidding. He's a troll, but my favorite troll of all time. Jimmy, do you ever get book series depression? Do you ever feel sad that a series has come to an end? If you do, how do you combat that? Yeah, yes, I think so. I think that last book that really gave it to me was Blood Meridian, and I just felt like I wasn't done with it yet. So what I did was I just immediately reread it. And that might be the way that you combat it. Maybe you just reread it again or find something that inspired that thing. Like for me, George R.R. Martin is inspired by so many people that it has been amazing going back through his lineage. And it has made me appreciate my favorite series ever, A Song of Ice and Fire, more, while also helping me find new favorites like Memory, Song, and Thorn. So those are two things that you could maybe try. I hope one day you see what everyone said in the comments. It might take me so long. Josh says, ugh, I don't think I've ever had a video with good lighting. It's a tough thing, man. Audio and then lighting. Those are the two hardest things for me. It is tough. Oh, okay, cool. So it's not that I would have had any issue with self-pub. I was just wondering if it was. What's your favorite old book? Hobbit? Blood in the Mist? I guess really old would probably be The Death of Ivan Illich or Anna Karenina, even though I haven't finished it yet. Those would probably be the ones. Benjamin says, do you think I would enjoy Bone Clocks was considering starting Mitchell with Cloud Atlas? Well, I haven't read Cloud Atlas, so I don't know if that would be a better starting point. I don't know if you would enjoy the Bone Clocks, Ben. I don't know. Mitchell's really hard to put. Like, there are certain people I think that will give it a leash, and I think you would give it its due and its time, and I think maybe you'd appreciate it, but I don't know if you'd love it. I have no idea. Very curious. I would love for you to try it though, but maybe Cloud Atlas is even a better place to start. That's actually one of the ones I'm going to read here. I would answer this question, Sam, but unfortunately, I don't want to spoil people. But if you want really in-depth A Song of Ice and Fire thoughts from me, go check out Bend the Knee. That's the A Song of Ice and Fire podcast that I do with Matt. We have a YouTube page, but you can download it on audio. We're much bigger on audio. I've talked very in-depth about things, and we go chapter by chapter, but there's some really good stuff in there. I got to go. Jimmy reads the chat as fast as Tab Williams advances the plot. See ya. Cheers. Cheers. Interesting. So Daniel has read both. He said Bone Clocks is easier to get into Cloud Atlas. And Andre says he's more of a Dostoevsky lover on the Russian old topics book. Yeah, I tend to fall in the Tolstoy camp. I have tried Dostoevsky quite a few times, and every single time I just end up falling off. There's something about it, like it doesn't click with me, but I'm going to continue to try because I really want to read Crime and Punishment. Jimmy, does it even matter who has rights to the Iron Throne or who should simply the best person for the job, both politically and morally, get the throne? Well, I mean, ideally, you want the best person. It's hard to know who the best person is, but I do think that, I mean, I don't like this. I don't like the political system of A Song of Ice and Fire very much. So the monarchy is no good, right? But it's Stannis' throne. That's all I'm saying. It's Stannis', the one true king. That's all I'm saying. Rebecca Nicole says, what do you think are some of the must-read books for people who like fantasy? I don't know if there's any must-reads, but if the ones that I would like tell people to try that I think that are really worth something, Perdido Street Station, A Song of Ice and Fire. I would even say Wheel of Time because it's such a big series, even though I don't like it. I would also recommend probably, this is tough, but I think Glenn Cook is on that list. I think he gets overlooked a lot. I think Glenn Cook, fantasy. We'll go with that. I'll just stop there. There's so many, right, that I could go with, but I've always kind of wanted people to read some of the older stuff as well. Like again, I didn't really like Legend by David Gemmell, but David Gemmell seems to be one that a lot of people kind of look over nowadays, and maybe that would be a good one for people. I know Oxford Classics translation, whoever did that one. Josh, I may read Crime and Punishment with you, but it depends on what I got going on. And Dostoevsky have I read. So I started Crime and Punishment, which I actually was enjoying, by the way. I just kind of put it down. I also did the Brothers Karamazov, about 200 pages, and it finally got good, like after the first act. But it simply kind of just fell out of favor with me. And then I tried Notes from the Underground twice, and I know it's supposed to be humorous, but I didn't find it funny. It's kind of, I don't know. It could be a translation issue for sure. And I think Crime and Punishment out of all of his works is the one that I'll probably like the most. And I do think the Brothers Karamazov, I'm probably saying it wrong, is one I could probably enjoy as well. I need to sit down and make myself say, I'm reading this now, not just a couple pages a day. Steve Donahue says, perhaps the Michael Katz translation of Crime and Punishment, no particular reasons. I think there's a blurb from someone on that edition of Crime and Punishment, and his name's Steve Donahue, and I believe he's a famous booktuber. Was I saying things, or did you pick up another Miss Boom? Yes, I picked up Shadows of Self. I'm about halfway through, a little bit over, and I'm liking it way more than Alloy of Law. It's actually made Alloy of Law even worse in retrospect, to where now I'm feeling like Alloy of Law may have been one of the worst books I've ever read, because Shadow of Self is not destroying my expectations or anything, but it's just a solid popcorn read. It's a pretty common fantasy read for me. Solid 3-star book, which is nothing wrong with. But I'm man, I think I gave Alloy of Law 2. I probably should have given it 1, because I enjoy Shadows of Self way more than Alloy of Law, but I'm not over the moon by Shadows of Self either. So tell me why you don't like Dostoevsky, and I'll explain to you why you're wrong. I believe Virginia Woolf described him as all of his characters yelling their most inner thoughts together in a very small room. And I feel like that's kind of how I felt as well. What's up, Andy Plies? What's up, brother? Also, what's up, Shad? Good to see you here. Yeah, okay. So when this video is over, if anyone would put the translations that they like in the comments, it'd be very appreciated. Eric, that's a very base take, and I like what you're putting down here. Beltube says, I believe if you can read and comprehend Book of the New Sun, mostly nothing is off the table. Maybe so. All right, so, oh God, Alloy of Law is better than Lost Metal. If that's the case, then woo, that ain't good. That ain't good. I'll comment on Chaz Itself by Brandon Sanderson, book 2 and Mistborn Era 2. It's him doing kind of like this, buddy cop crime mystery thing tied into the world. And the thing that I'm enjoying about it's a fine version of what that is in a fantasy world. But I think I like the Mistborn world and magic way more than I gave it credit for. The hemalurgy and all that stuff. That stuff is really cool. And the best thing about these books is the newspaper clippings that he puts in. I like that a lot. Outside of that, I do not. I don't know. I don't like the characters in Era 2 at all. Razy, I don't know her name. She's okay. But Wax and Wayne, I could throw out with the bathwater. I'm not a big fan. Y'all high, ain't no way Ally Law better than Lost Metal. Bands in the morning. Okay. Yeah, everyone is very, very apprehensive towards the Lost Metal. It's very polarizing. And no, I did not ever read the Aragon books. I know a lot of people did, and it's kind of the gateway to fantasy. I also hear this about Percy Jackson quite a bit, but I didn't read them. I think Harry Potter was like my age group, and I fell off on that in book 4 and never finished it because I don't care about it. Andre says, how hyped are you for Stormlight 5? I'm very hyped. Very, very hyped. I'm also slightly concerned that the series may be going in a direction that like I don't necessarily love, but I feel like book 4 was probably a necessity for stuff that he's setting up. I think book 4, this is me being optimistic. I think book 4 will be better after I read book 5, and I'm trusting that book 5 is going to be awesome. The thing I never realized is how much of an ending book 5 really is to this first era. Like I really didn't realize that. So we'll see. I think the Secret novels, I mean, I read 2 of them and a little bit of a third. I read Yumi and Tress, and I really hope the writing style is more akin to like Words of Radiance and Oathbringer, even Rhythm of War, than it is to Tress or Yumi. And I cannot endorse a quip fest. Like if it's just all quippy, this Wax and Wayne quips back and forth, they're terrible. I mean, that for me, I'm not saying if you like it, you're wrong. I'm just saying I don't like it at all. So I'm nervous, but I'm also hyped, especially going back through Way of Kings Unlost and Roshar. The little things that have been set up that still have not happened yet, and the questions we have for Stormlight 5 are ridiculous. I mean, some really, really cool breadcrumbs there and big mysteries. So let's hear that 12 or 13, Jimmy. Wait, 12 or 13 what? Oh, my books. Yeah, we're going to get to it. How do you feel about the name of the Wax and Wayne series? I don't mind corny, but that's even too much for me. Yeah, I don't like it. And I like dad humor for the most part. I just don't think Sanderson's all that good at it personally. Why are there only 43 likes? Get on it, people. I agree. Damn it. I really got to check out that Grimdark King author, by the way. By the way, if people left comments and I missed them, it wasn't on purpose. I backed out the stream like an idiot and had to come back. Thank God the stream didn't end. So if you left a comment there, I'll probably see it after the fact, but I just want you to know I appreciate it. I'm going to go through some books that I'm going to read this year. So these books are 90% sure I'm going to get to this year. There's not a ton of them, but there's enough. And if I don't read them, don't hold it against me. And I hope maybe some of you will join me. So the first one is going to be Philip K. Dick, A Scanner Darkly. I really enjoyed Man in the High Castle. I liked more about Man in the High Castle was the fact that I got to bring on Dr. Gregory B. Sadler, who is putting out another Malazan video tomorrow. Go check that out on his channel. But the discussion around the book was incredible. And Philip K. Dick is very forthcoming about his process and about what he felt about books. And I know that this one has a lot of what Philip K. Dick had struggled with himself. And I'm really excited about this, and more so to talk about with Gregory Sadler, because the dude's awesome. I love him. So this is definitely one that I'll be getting to. I'm going to try to interact with the chat as I go through this and not just like yell at you like a video. So if anyone's read Skin of Darkly, I would absolutely love for you to join those chats whenever I end up having them with Dr. Gregory B. Sadler. Brad says, what font size do you use on Kindle, Jimmy? I use old man font. It's like big, you know what I mean? It's like a bullet, because I can't stress out my eyes anymore. I have very bad eyes. And they're only getting worse, it seems, year by year. So I don't know, whatever grandpa size is, that's what I have. I'm sorry, Melissa. I didn't mean to ignore your greeting. I'm sorry. Wait, what, you don't want? Oh, Empire of the Vampire better be on there. It's not. It's not. Not because I don't want to read it, but because it's not on here. It's not something that's like been eking up my TBR. It looks like people have read it, but they haven't read it, but saw the movies. I've heard the movie's pretty good. Oh, here we go. So DL says, what series would you recommend to A Song of Ice and Fire? Man, for me, nothing comes close to it. I mean, nothing is ever going to embody everything about A Song of Ice and Fire. I mean, that's one of the reasons why it's so special, is because it has so many facets to it and so many faces. So it depends on what you like about A Song of Ice and Fire. If you like everything about A Song of Ice and Fire and you want that all in another series, I don't think you're going to find it. But the Dagger and the Coin series by Daniel Abraham is one that I highly recommend. I also am a big fan of Robin Hobb. I think that there's some argument that like maybe a good pivot is First Law, but I think First Law lacks scope that A Song of Ice and Fire is. So if you like the big epicness, I don't think you're going to find it in First Law. But if you love great characters and great dialogue, First Law could be it as well. So those are probably the ones that I would recommend. Favorite Gentleman Bastards book? Either book 1 or 2, I would say. Really love book 3, but it wasn't as good as book 1 and 2, I don't think. All right. Let's see. Someone said, yeah, cataracts. Yeah, apparently I got to worry about glaucoma, but I got something to cure my glaucoma, if you know what I mean. The Dagger and the Coin shut up my TBR. Yeah, be careful. It's really slow. I need to put that out. The Dagger and the Coin is slow, but I think it's awesome, personally. All right, next book. And I can't say I'll finish all of it because these are actually, I think this is actually supposed to be 10 books, but it's all compiled in this absolute massive book. And this is called Ash, A Secret History by Mary Gentle. And I'll kind of read the back so you guys have an idea of what it's about, because I only know a little bit. Mary Gentle's magnificent tale of gutsy and beautiful mercenary leader Ash will take you on an unforgettable ride through medieval Europe as it never quite was. For Ash, life has always been about artillery, swords, and armor, and the true horrors of hand-to-hand combat. War is her job, but she doesn't realize that the voice in her head is not the Lord and his saints, but something far, far stranger. And I know that this is supposedly like a framed narrative, like it's supposed to be a book about a book, and you're reading this recounting of it. I think there's an unreliable narrator, I think, in this, but I'm not positive about that. But this was published back in the 80s, I believe, if I can find the page for it. And this is, actually copyright 1999. So it's actually not that old. Not that the 80s is that old. I guess it is for some of you, but 1999. And this is one that has fallen through the cracks. And this is one that I'm very, very excited about. Like I said, it actually is like, I think 10 books, and it's all compiled into this. So you can read it as one big thing, but I am super excited about this. I think that this is going to be really interesting. It's that historical alternate fantasy world type thing going on. And I love following a good old mercenary band. So I'm excited about this. This one is very, very forgotten. I had to scour to find this thing. It has a $1.99 tag on the back. I did not pay that, unfortunately, for this. So I highly recommend it. And Library Ladder says Ash is a tremendous read. So we would absolutely love to see more people reading this, right? I think I saw someone say something bad about George R. R. Martin, so I got to defend it real quick. Brendan says, I just think Jerome doesn't know how to finish. My thoughts are reading Dance was that Martin just kept widening his story and narrowing it down, just too much to wrap up. I mean, it's certainly a lot to wrap up, and I think you can make an argument that 2 books wouldn't be enough. I think there are threads that he is struggling with, but I think when you make $150 million, it gets harder to wake up and go to work. Now, the thing about George is that he is still working. He's just not working on the thing that we really want him to work on. So I wouldn't ever say that George isn't putting out effort. It's just the effort in places that, we probably wish it was somewhere else. I think it's a tough story to wrap up. I do think it's a tough story to wrap up. I don't know if I would say he doesn't know how to finish. I think he wants it to be satisfying, and that might be very tough. So we'll probably never get to the end of the series, but I'm okay with that. I don't mind. DL says, yeah, I read the first trilogy and loved it, but it was more so because of the characters. Yeah, if you're going for like, you know, honestly, the second Apocalypse is probably would be up your alley. Try the second Apocalypse with R. Scott Baker, all the content warnings possible, but I love how biblical that series feels, and I think it does a lot of the things that George R. Martin does well as, you know, in his books. And R. Scott Baker and him went on a tour together in like Vietnam or somewhere. I can't remember. They did a tour together, and I watched interviews with them, and it was really interesting hearing them both talk about like what makes their series specials. 99 was 25 years ago. I was 9 years old then. Wild. I'm making my way through the Warrior Prophet now and really enjoying it. I'm glad that you're enjoying it. There's some battles in that book that are absolutely incredible. So another book that I'm definitely going to be reading is Subtle Knife by Philip Pullman. I started his Dark Materials right at the end of the year, and I'll definitely be getting into this. The audiobooks I think are fantastic. And I've heard that Subtle Knife and then whatever the next book is, I can't remember what it's called. But book 3 is supposed to be amazing. And then the Books of Dust, I think, is getting its conclusion this year or early next year. So it's a great time to get into this series. And yeah, I had a good time with this, even though it's a little bit younger. I like Philip Pullman's writing. And I don't think that even if he was aiming for a little bit of a younger audience, I don't think he insults the reader's intelligence. And that's really all I ask for whenever I read something that might be aimed at a little bit of a younger audience. And I think he has respect for his reader, no matter what the age. And also, I just think the plot is really, really cool. So, oh yeah, I'm just kidding, Brendan. When I said I had to defend George, I'm just kidding. I just laugh at myself because I can't help I'm compulsively defending George all the time. So people are like, I didn't like this one word in this one sentence, and I'm like, how dare you? I'm a Twitter stan, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I've heard Subtle Knife is such a weird left turn, and that's what I've heard. I've heard that the series really goes a different direction after book 1, and that's what that's my expectations. Like, this book does need to deliver a bit because, it's not like the first book was oh my God. But it was really good. But this is the one that has to, kind of wow me a bit to get me to read book 3. So. Oh man, Nicholas Christian says, I read The Darkness Comes Before while hiking the Appalachian Trail. That book got me through some dark shite. Baker deserves respect. Hey, good on you. And also really cool that you hiked the trail. It's a monster. It's an absolute monster. Yeah, I've heard the third book gets too criticism too on the nose. I think I'm the audience for the message probably, and the people who don't like it probably aren't. Maybe I'll feel differently because who wants to be beat over the head with something? Who knows? Let's see. What other books do we have here? Heroes Die by Matthew Wooding Stover. I'm finally going to read this freaking book. Okay. I'm finally going to read. Is this the Acts of Cain series? I always forget what the series is called. I'm finally going to read this thing. I've been putting it off for so long. One of my favorite bad covers ever. It's so incredible. I have heard nothing but good things. This is a book. I think this is actually one of the first books when coming to Booktube as a viewer that I heard recommended. And I was like, I have to read this. I am so excited. Benjamin says Garbo. Oh no. Everyone else is super excited. If this is anything other than a 5-star read, it'll be disappointing because I've been looking forward to it for so long. I know almost nothing about it other than supposedly it's I don't know if it's Portal fantasy, but I just know that it's I bet you were saying Garbo to the cover, Ben. I bet you that's what you were saying. But I just know he's like a reality star or on a TV show of something in a fantasy world. I don't really know anything. And that's how I'm going to keep it because I want to go in with little as known as possible. The cover is beyond atrocious, but I think this is one of those covers. If you look at it long enough, you start to like it because I kind of like it now. Or maybe I'm just being, a jerk off. There's definitely that possibility, right? Yeah. A cover is so bad. It's good. That's what I'm trying to say. Sorry, Appalachian. The Appalachian Trail. It's the first time I've ever pronounced it like that. Scott Lynch is a big fan of Hero Dies, I think. That probably does to me. Oh, no, Ben did hate it. He did it on audio. I have heard the audio is not good. I've had people tell me to avoid the audio, so that could be possibly it. I think I own the audio. The guy on the cover looks like AP. AP is a critical dragon. Honestly, kind of. Like if we got him a set of like Bowflex dumbbell adjustables, he could aspire to be like that one day. Next book, drum roll please, is Children of Dune. Book 3. I'm most likely going to wait till I watch Dune Part 2 because, I'm going to be in the mood. I've thought about rereading Dune Messiah before this. I might just watch a Quinn's wrap-up recap of it because he's amazing. I've been wanting to continue this for so long, and I know it gets weird. I know the next few from this series are very polarizing, but I want to see what it's all about. I have read the very first chapter of this, and as soon as I read it, it gave me this feeling of being like, oh, like I love this world and I forgot about this. Like Arrakis is awesome. I feel like I don't talk about Dune nearly as much as I think about Dune, if that makes sense. Part of it's because it's trendy to talk about Dune. So like, I'm like, why do I need to talk about this? Because everyone else is talking about, like, I don't want to be a bandwagon guy. Cause I read the first book. I think I read Dune in 2020. So I'm new. I'm a bandwagon guy. I was late to the party, so I don't get to claim any hipster credit. But yeah, I'm really excited about this. I hope it's good. And if I love it, I'm reading God Emperor. Actually, I'll probably read God Emperor of Dune. Unless this is a DNF, I'll probably read God Emperor because I've heard it's just outlandishly weird. And I like when people do weird things. So, all right. So let's get to something fantasy related that I think a lot of people would be excited about. God Emperor of Dune sucks. All right. Apparently, I have to read this. I'm super happy that people are excited. Appalachia. He does look like AP. Yes, it is GGK, Bridger. That is correct. And this is Sailing to Sarantium. And the other book in this is a duology of Lord of Emperors. I obviously am not going to put book 2 on here if I don't know if I'm going to read it. If I do love this, I'll probably read them closer together. Let me tell you. Everything I know about this, and from what Jake Bishop and I've seen from Library Ladders videos, this is the new kind of hope. I go into Guy Gavriel K with extremely high expectations. I ended up very mid on Tagana because I literally was expecting it to become a new favorite book of all time. I was thinking best fantasy standalone easy, and maybe it'll make my top 10 books. It was not that experience. So Guy Gavriel K has like kind of a handicap almost because I'm going into it like if it's not 5 stars, dang, because I expect a lot of it. GGK is very talented. I got a good feeling. This is going to redeem Tagana. I'm hoping that, I put this up there with Lions of Al-Rassan, but even more so, I hope it's up there with Song for Arbonne because that book, almost won my book of the year, and it could very well could have. So always excited to read Guy Gavriel K. Super excited about Sailing to Sarantium. If you have read this and you're a Guy Gavriel K fan, let me know, is it your favorite? Very curious. If you don't like Sarantine, I'm unsubscribing. I got to read this bad boy. Shot myself in the foot reading Tagana and Finnevar all in a row. Yeah, Finnevar, I mean, I know a lot of people feel like Finnevar is him kind of like doing his Tolkien thing and finding his voice. And then Tagana is beloved, clearly, but I think there's room to love. I love all of his other books. Like Under Heaven is a book I have to reread because I'm almost convinced it's his best book I've read so far, even though it's not my favorite, if that makes any sense at all. Yeah, Tagana does seem polarizing. I would agree. Brendan says, God Emperor was described by Kid Herbert as a bridge between original trilogy and a new trilogy that Frank only wrote 2 of. So there it sits. Yeah. Yeah, one of those series that just never got all the way there, right? Yeah, Arbonne and Al-Rassan. I think if you ask me right now, I think I would say my top 3 from Guy Gavriel K would be Song for Arbonne by like a slim margin over Under Heaven and then Lions. Lions used to be number 2. I would put it at number 3 now because I just think Under Heaven was so damn good, which I love it. Why do you need anyone other than Jake's opinion? I like to have a good sample size. That's all. McScarfield says, Serenity was my favorite read in 2022. I belong to the weird ones who prefer it over Lord of Emperors. I didn't know that there was a feud between the two. That's very interesting. All right, next book on the list is the God. This is all thanks to Jared, by the way. So now I'm going to open up the front page because I can't read it. So it's from Milan Kundera, and it's called The Unbearable Lightness of Being, translated from Czech into English. It's a young woman in love with a man torn between his love for her and his incorrigible womanizing. One of his mistresses and her humbly faithful lover. These are the two couples whose story is told in this masterful novel. I've heard it's very philosophical. I read the first chapter and thought it was beautiful. And I know that it's supposed to make me super duper sad. And it's, it's your typical me book where it's going to make me question life and all those other things. So this was recommended by Jared Henderson, and it's very short, and it's one that I had not heard of. So I'm very keen to try this. I might read this weekend into next week, actually. So this one might be being read very, very quickly when I go on my trip. I'm assuming not many people have actually read that. Sai says it's Milan Kundera. I don't know. I'm sorry. When I mispronounce things, I don't even find it funny. It honestly depresses me and makes me not want to talk. So I apologize. I do try my best. You guys should see me fumble through One Piece. It's embarrassing. Oh, when I read it, but honestly, it hasn't stuck with me. Well, I will be very, very curious to see if it's one that I end up, loving. It's definitely going to be interesting. So next thing, and I will be reading this in February with Joanna and Murphy, and that is In Ascension by Martin McKennis. I don't know. So only thing I know about this, First Contact novel, has an oceanographer in it. That's all I know. And it also was long listed for the Booker Prize in 2023, which is what caught my eye. I was going through the Booker list, nominees, everything, winners, and I was just taking books down. Like, what do I want to read? And this is probably at the very top. So this will be read in February. I love First Contact. I've heard it's extraordinarily slow, which is always a good thing because I like slow books. So we'll see how I feel about that. And we'll see if I continue to succeed with reading Booker winners or even long listed, because they've been pretty good so far. If you're reading this, give Umberto Eco a shot. The Name of the Rose. Okay. Interesting. Hooray for slow books. That's right, Joanna. Joanna, it's 9:00. I'm shocked that you're awake. Thank you for joining. Yes, In Ascension looks so great. I'm going to wait for your opinion before buying. Alan left out, very sad. Alan, this is not an Alan book. I don't think Alan would like this book. I think it's about something. And we know that Alan doesn't like when books are about something, even though if he actually does. So what's next? Let's do something that's a little bit more aimed at fantasy. We'll do this. Julian Mays, The Many-Colored Land. Go look at almost any top 10 sci-fi fantasy list before the year like 2010, and this is on most of them, like all-time list. I believe the New York Times had it listed, and some other publications. Won a bunch of awards. Julian May has unfortunately slipped through the cracks and has been someone that has been kind of left behind, and I don't know why. I don't know if it has something to do with the publisher not reprinting or whatever it might be. But this is a series called the Saga of the Pliocene Exile. And it's essentially a sci-fi story / kind of fantasy where a bunch of people come in to world during prehistoric times that have been exiled from an alien civilization of humans. And that's all I really know about it. I'll read the back of it. I think this sounds so cool. In orderly and peaceful interstellar society, the 21st century's galactic million, I think is how you say it, had little place for the incurable adventure, the secret psychotic, or the ruthless con man. So when a one-way time tunnel to Earth 6 million BC was discovered, every misfit for light years around hurried to pass through it, hungry for adventure, the romance of the unknown, and a life free of the million's stuffy rules. Each sought his own brand of happiness, but none could have guessed what awaited them, not even in a million years. This sounds awesome. Come on. Come on. By the way, David, I bought the first book of Dragon Riders of Pern, based on Steve Donahue's suggestion, actually. I think that this has an opportunity to be an absolute banger. I have seen people kind of say that it's super duper dense and that you have to like sit with this one and it's not a breezy read. I can't remember how many books are in this series, maybe 5 or 6. I don't know. I can't remember. But I'm telling you, if you go back and look at lists, this was always on them until it stopped being printed. We're going to see. We're going to see how I enjoyed The Many Colored Land by Julian May this year. This and Ash are the ones that like are lesser talked about, and I feel it could be really fun. So if you want to join the hype train, let's do it. Unless if I hate it, and then I'll tell you I hated it. Who do you have to get to the Super Bowl? I have the 49ers with the over and the Ravens with the over, but I have a terrible feeling that somehow Patrick Mahomes is going to pull it out. Not that I really honestly care that much. I actually would cheer for the Ravens if they didn't have OBJ, but I despise OBJ. So I have a lot more books to get through, so we're going to keep going. So Earth of the New Sun by Gene Wolfe. I've kind of already talked about this. It's the 5th book in Book of the New Sun, the coda for the series. I'll probably read this very soon because I just finished Book of the New Sun. I want to keep it fresh in my mind. And next will be Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. You guys have seen that I've fallen in love with David Mitchell, and this will not be the only David Mitchell I read in 2024, but it's the one I guarantee I will read, which is Cloud Atlas, and I'd like to get to this also very soon. This one's a bit of a chunker, a little bit over 500 pages, but his stuff is, in my opinion, just so very readable. So I'll be checking out Cloud Atlas, which I will then also be watching the movie for, because Tom Hanks says it's one of only 4 good movies he ever made, which is a ridiculous statement from one of the best actors of all time. But I've heard Cloud Atlas is fantastic. So nice. Next book to pick up. I hope people will read it. That book is a masterpiece. God, I'm so excited. All right, listen. I was talking to some friends today, and I was talking about how a lot of people found my channel from the Faithful and the Fallen reviews. And I don't know if you guys remember those. Like, if you go back, they're not the most technically sound reviews. They're more reactions. And I wasn't as well read. I was getting back into fantasy, and I was just excited to be reading. And I was just, really turning on the camera exasperated for how excited I was about Faithful and the Fallen. And I look back on those videos and I go, would I feel the same way if I read it today? Maybe not. I certainly would probably approach the video differently, because that's, you change as you go around. Those were before Jimmy knew what diction was. Yeah, that's correct. I've learned and I've grown, and I read a lot of books about writing and blah, 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 blah. What I'm trying to say is that when I think about reading Cloud Atlas, I get that feeling. I get that urge, to start going off. And I haven't even read a page of it yet, but David Mitchell gives me that. And the unfortunate thing is that John Gwynn is far more liked by the viewers of my channel than David Mitchell probably ever will be, because David Mitchell is just, polarizing. But I'm excited. I'm really, really excited about this. Should I do ASMR the rest of this? Garrick says, the Faithful and the Fallen reviews are legendary, made me feel validated, and how excited I was for getting back in the reading. I will defend those books to the death, even with flaws or whatever. I understand they're not the greatest, but man, if it wasn't for Faithful and the Fallen reviews, we wouldn't be here tonight. So thanks, John Gwynn. You're awesome. Jimmy, STJ. I don't know what that means. That book is going to put you on your ass. And yes, Melissa, a lot of people say this. Every time I hear David Mitchell, I can only picture the British comedian and actor. Yes. This is not a live book call. I should have kind of reiterated. This is me going about things that I'm pretty much definitely going to read in 2024. 90% chance. Swear to God. Thanks, David. The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro, the author of Never Let Me Go. I know a lot of people said to start with Never Let Me Go. I'm going to read this first. Jared's really big on this book. This guy has won the Nobel Prize in Literature. I've talked about this already on the stream. I'm going to read this. Extraordinarily short, and I've heard it's profound. So I'll be looking forward to that for all my people who like, litfic and some of that stuff. A good one that I'm confident I'm going to love here is going to be Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower. I think we're further along in getting me to read an Octavia Butler than maybe any of the other authors other than David Mitchell. I am so excited to read this. I want to see what Octavia Butler can do. I know a little bit about the series. I know it's not finished. I don't care. I've heard that you can read books 1 and 2 like as standalones, even though they're part of the same series. And I've heard that it's just absolutely incredible. So it's going to be Octavia Butler. I mean, she's one of the best, in my opinion. I've only read one book by her, but Kindred is one of the best books I've ever read. So super excited about Octavia Butler. I'm going to get caught up with the chat here. Remains of the Day is the one. Should do Never Let Me Go, but we will accept this. I will do it. I just wanted to do this one first. David's like, yep, 5-star. Hey, Eric, this is awesome. He says, your Faithful in the Fallen review is what got me back into reading in Booktube. Thank you. Thank you for saying this, because I spend a lot of my time wondering what kind of ego or what kind of like gall I must have to think people want to hear what I have to say, or to have an opinion on books. And I always try to be very upfront that like I'm not an authority. I'm just a dude that wants to talk to you people and make a place where people can come and chat and whatever. But whenever I see like people say these things, and I assume, that these people are being genuine, because why else would they say these things? It means a lot to me, because I know what reading means to me. I know what having community has meant to me in some of my darkest times. So when people tell me these type of things, I might be a little bit embarrassed by how overzealous I was in those reviews, in an endearing way, but none of that really matters. Or what I didn't know at that time doesn't really matter if it helped people get into reading. Like, that is the mission. That's it. So Eric, thank you. And Eric, you've been a patron for a long time and supported in a lot of different ways. So thank you as well. This made my day. Thank you. Tito says, Parable of Sower is the book I think about the most from last year, and I read some bangers. Yes, Octavia. She's an icon, an absolute icon. My phone just blew up. I don't know who's trying to talk to me. Jesse's Journey says, what would you say to someone that wants to talk about books with booktubers but doesn't necessarily want a channel? What would you say to someone on the fence about channel creation? Well, you should make the channel because it's free. And you never know what could happen. And I think having a creative outlet, if it's something you're flirting with, is something that you should always try. I'm a big fan of the Shia LaBeouf, just do it. I'm a big fan of that. Sometimes you just got to make the jump. Talking about books with booktubers but doesn't necessarily want a channel, that's a tough one, right? That's a tough one. I don't know. I guess you could make the argument that like we're talking about books right now, right? This is why I like doing these episodes. I only plan to do an hour and 15 minutes, and we're already an hour and 47. I got a lot of books to go. But this is a one way to talk, and this is why live streams are really cool. And I'm glad that we have the opportunity to do it, which is awesome. I think I bought Grace of Kings per your wrap up a long time back. I'm halfway into Wall of Storms, and it's incredible. Wall of Storms is amazing. Opry Sopri, I don't know how to say this. Chatting with Nuts. I'm in Rio with my family on vacation and is stuck at the Airbnb with a stomach bug while they go out and have fun. Well, I hope you feel better. I really do. My mother-in-law is sick in Mexico right now, and I'm hoping she's also feeling better. You're a great accompaniment to the Yakuza 8 this morning. You're going to have to sell me on the Yakuza series, because I've always looked at it and been like, I don't think I'd like this. So you need to sell me on it, Ben. I first discovered Jimmy through Man Carrying Thing, Chatting with Nuts. It's a classic. A lot of people don't realize I had an episode with a massive YouTuber now. Jake is a great guy, and I love that episode, and I love the way he talks. He makes a lot of silly videos, but that's a really well-spoken and thoughtful guy. And maybe we get Jake back on one day. I don't think he's too big to talk to his boy Jimmy. He still drops in every now and then, which I very much appreciate. Your Emperor's Blade review got me back in the reading. I don't believe you. Taylor says, technical reviews are great, but reviews that show a passionate reaction to a book can be just as, if not more, effective. Loved Kindred. I read Parable of Sower, starting to get to Parable of Talents. Yeah, loved Kindred is a weird thing to say, isn't it? Because of how just impactful it is. What a book, man. Nicholas says, Never Let Me Go is one of the most overrated, boring, obvious waste times I've had the misfortune of reading. Oh, I might like it. I don't know. We'll see. Did Jimmy just turn into a Yas Queen? Yes, I did. Jimmy, your overzealous reviews have damn sure got more people to read than the sterile reviews by professional critics. Be proud of that. Quick, Donahue, close your eyes. Don't read this. Thank you, David. I genuinely appreciate it. I hope I can add something to the conversation. Yes, Nike is also just do it. But, you know, the Shia LaBeouf gif. Rebecca says, I discovered Jimmy from his Robin Hobb days, but I've been a lurker on Booktube a long time before starting and participate and comment. Yeah, and Rebecca is a great part of my patron Discord and also has, been in these streams quite often now. And my Robin Hobb days were another big peak for me. Like Faithful and the Fallen, Robin Hobb, and Malazan. Like those were the series, because I read them straight through, that really started building a base in a lot of ways. And it's funny because, like, I don't know, I feel like people come to me for a lot of different things because this show is kind of everything. It's interesting. Do I have a favorite video game soundtrack? Any of the Souls games, but also Persona 5. Banger. Persona 4 as well. What other PKDs have you read so far? So I have read Man in the High Castle, and I have read Ubik, and I liked Ubik more than Man in the High Castle, but I really liked both. I loved Ubik, and I damn near loved Man in the High Castle. Man in the High Castle is the story around Man in the High Castle is more interesting than Man in the High Castle in a lot of ways, though the premise is awesome. I love the TV show, even though all of the as we call them, dickheads hate it. Philip Dick, get it. But my video about Man in the High Castle with Gregory B. Sadler that's here on the channel is one of, if not my favorite video I've ever made about a book. I love the discussion. We go into why PKD made certain choices. Very good. Very, very good. Life and Bunnies. I've read a lot because of Jimmy, and Stoner was last year, and I think it was my favorite book. I think about it quite a lot. I think about Stoner all the time. Tony Patrick asks, would you say Dune is an emotional story? I only really love the books that are very emotional, like Robin Hobb, so I also want to try and do before the movie releases. No, not in the same way a Robin Hobb book is. I think there are human emotions behind it because of some of the things that are being tackled. Like I wouldn't be surprised if like you felt something, but it is not a deeply moving book for me, at least. And Frank Herbert's prose, coming as a journalist, can be a little bit dry, which I think makes it a little bit tougher to connect. And the characters are and I'm speaking about Dune book 1, are mostly like two-dimensional. That's a bad thing. You can write a very compelling story with 2D characters. I believe that. I mean, I guess maybe 2D's being a little harsh, I guess, but I don't think it's an overly emotional story, in my opinion. John's 870 says, I haven't gone back and watched your older overzealous reviews, but I feel like your more recent reviews and discussions are very well thought and insightful. Keep it up. Thanks. Thank you very much. I very, very much appreciate it. Yeah, the Dune books are more intellectual, philosophical, maybe, something to chew on, food for thought kind of thing. The next one, The Sparrow by Mary Doria Russell. This has been said to be one of the most messed up sci-fis. I've heard it's quite graphic or grim or something. I don't know. I've heard a lot of people turn away from this because it makes them feel very uncomfortable. There is a second book that I believe Bridger said he likes even more, but she kind of like irons out some of the stuff that would be considered wrinkles from the first one. So this is the book that I think was very first on my list for 2024. Like when I started, I said, okay, what's a rough idea of some things I would like to get to? This was number one. I know Quinn's Ideas, who, most of us love, is a big fan of this. And I'm really, really excited about reading Mary Doria Russell. I've not read anything by her before, clearly. What book are you looking forward to reading most this year? Let me go through all these books and then I'll try to pick one. I'll try. I do love hearing what you're interested in reading. Very hyped for Heroes Die, Mini Colorland, and Ash. I'm glad. I imagine Jimmy was getting Alan's frustrations with it, even though he did say he liked it over in our read along last year. Jimmy, you mentioned it once planned to read Dart of the Empire this year. I think you would love it. Oh, no, I would definitely like to. I never started it. I read Curse of the Mistwraith, and I read the second book, and I haven't continued Wars of Light and Shadow. I will probably read the Empire trilogy before I were to before I were to do that. Wars of Light and Shadows is another series where I felt like I was a little too dumb. Books that make you just try to attract Jimmy like a moth to a flame. That is the truest statement of all time. Oh, I read The Sparrow last year. Just didn't make my top 10. It'll be interesting, Kai, because I know that, like, for instance, like you weren't a huge fan of Blindsight, but I love Blindsight. So I won, and like you also love Cyberpunk. So I wonder if our sci-fi tastes are like, opposite. No, I don't want to say opposite, but you know what I mean? Like they might not be the same. I'll be very, very interested. I need to read the sequel to The Sparrow. I really like it. It's not something I would normally like. I've heard it can be very off-putting. Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James. And in addition to this, A Brief History of Seven Killings, which I believe won the Booker Prize by Marlon James, is also on this list. I've actually started that book. I just don't know if I'm going to continue it immediately. Sometimes I start books and read a few chapters and then I try to get back to it. Marlon James, though, the 100 pages or so I've read a Brief History of Seven Killings, which is about an assassination attempt on Bob Marley in Jamaica that spans like decades from different POVs. The writing is absolutely incredible. I have heard that this is very dark. It is book one of the Dark Star trilogy. The third book is due out this year. I've heard that these are very dense. It's supposed to be based, I believe, around African folklore, but I'm not positive about that, so I might be wrong. But I'm very excited to see what happens with this. He's a very stylized writer, very talented writer from what I can tell. And the content shouldn't bother me. I can handle most anything in a book. But I have heard that it's very graphic. So reader beware if you decide to pick that up. All right. This one, Star of the Unborn. And I can't remember who this is by, but my friend Mitch, who's in chat, sent this to me, which is very, very kind of him. It's by Franz Werfel. And this is back in 1946. I know almost nothing about this. I've heard it's incredible. And Bookpilled, who's a very popular booktuber, apparently he loves it, from what I understand. But it's a sci-fi book. And the first chapter is like a fourth wall break, where it's like addressing you, kind of. And I thought that it was super duper interesting. So we're going to try this. This is going to be one of the older books that I read this year, and I'm very, very interested. The first chapter, wherein the author appears to be prologizing, but the reader soon discovers that he is apologizing. That's how this book opens up. Apparently, this is really hard to find. So, Mitch, big shout out to you for finding this and then sending to me, which is really incredible. If you're curious more about it, I honestly don't know a terrible amount about this book, but Bookpilled has done a video on it. I think it's like his most underrated masterpiece that's been forgotten or something. So this is going to be on that. And yes, that's John's Patreon pick. So you can change it because I'm gonna try to get to that this year for sure. We're almost through. I promise we're almost through. Let's see. Do I have it? Oh, here's a good fantasy book that I'm already started. And that is going to be Tyrion of Faith by Richard Swan. I'm going to read book 3 as long as I like this book. It comes out in like 2 weeks. As long as I like this, I will read book 3. I liked book 1. I thought it was a really good debut. And I'm hoping that this one ups the ante a little bit and pushes it into the great territory. And I also, by the way, just really love these covers. And I love the horror elements that Richard Swan is doing. I think the world in which he's setting the story in is not remarkable. I feel like it's extremely commonplace. But there were other things about it that I very much enjoyed that carried me through, mainly the horror elements. And some of the themes around justice were also really interesting. I Know This Much Is True by Wally Lamb. Why? I just heard people talking about it. And my friend Amanda said that Jimmy needs to read some Wally Lamb, and I trust her. So I'm reading some Wally Lamb this year. Has an HBO limited series. It's about brothers. I read the first chapter to try it out before I bought it, and I thought it was absolutely stupendous. It seems like a brother who is maybe mentally ill and a brother who is not, and then him taking care of his brother after like a failed suicide attempt and then kind of recanting their childhood and stuff. I don't have a brother, but I imagine this book might make me want one. I think that ship has sailed, though, for my parents. Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. This is based around Henry VIII. It's a historical fiction. This was recommended by my friend Jared and Steve Donahue. This also, I believe, won the Man Booker Prize and was on the list. So I was already kind of curious about it. They recommended it. I said I should definitely do this. I'm going to give this a shot this year as well. Historical fiction hasn't been unanimously a great thing for me, but The Killer Angels by Michael Shara, was so good. So good. So I'm back on wanting to try some more historical fiction. This is set in the 1520s. King Henry VIII was quite the character. So we will see how this will go. Anne Boleyn will be in here, I'm sure. I'm very curious to see how this goes. Prophet Song by Paul Lynch. This was the Booker Prize 2023 winner. Again, I went through the Booker and checked this out. This is written by an Irish author who basically writes a story about someone being taken away by a government agency, and things happen with his family once he's gone, and the mystery of where he's at and why. And I think he's a scientist, and I don't know a lot. But my friend Yolanda from StoryTube said that this is selling like hotcakes in Ireland. Not selling as well in the United States, but it won the Booker Prize. I'm super interested in it, and I hope that I enjoy it. It's also extremely short, if you'd like to join me on that one. And the second to final book is Canticle for Leibowitz by Walter M. Miller Jr. This is considered a sci-fi classic. This is one that people talk about all the time. It's supposed to have a ton of imagination. Has some religious themes in here, and I've read the first chapter, and it was very strange. I don't know if I'm going to love this, if I'm being honest, but this is one of those sci-fi books that gets thrown into the, oh, this is real literature circles. So I'll be curious to see what about it makes people feel like they can elevate it out of sci-fi and make sure it doesn't, get contaminated by being next to Hyperion or whatever else. Very interested in this. I'm very keen about it being a post-apocalyptic world. It's one of my favorite settings. I'm trying to read more post-apocalyptic stuff because it's my favorite, and I don't know why I don't read more of it. So we'll see how this goes. I found I've read the first couple pages, and I found the prose to be a little dry, but we'll see. I think I'll like it. I'm pretty sure it's like vignettes, but I might be wrong about that. And the last book, I don't have it up here, is Too Like the Lightning by Ada Palmer. I don't have it up here. My friend Kai sent me a copy. It's downstairs on like things that people have sent to me shelf. So Kai, thank you for sending that to me forever ago. But I'm going to be trying Terra Ignota now that I finished Book of the New Sun. I'll be continuing the solar cycle as well. Too Like the Lightning is probably my most anticipated book for 2023, just because so many of my friends really love it. And if it's anything more like Gene Wolfe and someone, going new places, I'm all about it. I would say, other than that, man, Many Color Land is probably up there, but Cloud Atlas is probably number 2. I think Cloud Atlas. I just get bubbly when I talk about it. I hate using that. It sounds weird. That's just how I feel. But those are the books that I have on the docket for 2024. I'm not going to make a dedicated video, so I feel like, you all will have the insider information, and maybe not as many people will watch, so I don't have to stay like super committed. Looking back through, it seems like some people are really excited. People are saying that Trials of Empire, the third book in the Richard Swan trilogy, goes full horror. I love to see that. And when we were talking about the Marlon James book, it's African folklore. The book was clearly unfinished at 70% rage and pushed out for awards season. The quality and editing is startling at that point. Also overrated. It was not finished ready. Okay, interesting. We'll see if I'm as hardcore as you are. I'm probably a little bit easier to please, I would imagine. I can tell you this brief history of Seven Killings, the Bob Marley. The writing is insane. It's insanely good. So I'll be curious. Also, I'm curious if I like book 1, I'll be curious to also read book 2 of that and see if I like it, because maybe it won't have those issues that you mentioned. David thinks I won't love Canticle, but I'll appreciate it. That's always a good thing. I love your pompous voice. Thank you. Do you read graphic novels? Check out Monsters by Barry Windsor Smith. Absolute masterpiece. I will check that out, Tom. Thank you. I tried Lock and Key, and I kind of fell off with it. I didn't hate it. I just lost interest. I still have them, so I'll probably finish it one day. I'm not very versed in graphic novels. Except for Saga is that. Saga was awesome. I need to read more of that. So good. Yeah, Stormlight 5 is not on this list. I'm clearly going to read that this year, and I'm clearly excited. But for some reason, it's not in my brain, and I don't know why. With that, I think we've been here a good amount of time, and I've gotten to answer some wonderful questions from you all, and I'm glad I got to go over a bunch of stuff that I want to read in 2024. I'm hoping that some of these books now can get on your TBR for the year, because I would love to be able to talk about them with you. And I haven't done reviews in a long time, and I'm not going to sit here and say I'm about to start doing reviews again. But who knows? I would feel a lot more interested in making a video about the Many-Colored Land than I would about Stormlight 5, just to be honest. Even though Stormlight 5 is probably what more people want to hear about, I think it's, maybe not a review even, maybe just talking about what it is, if I like it, which I don't know if I will, but if I like it, why I liked it, why I loved it, and the story behind it, why did it fall a favorite, all those things, more informational stuff, which could be cool. So who knows, maybe this will spark some new conversations in the book community, in the book sphere. I think there are quite a few on here that we don't see, talked about a lot. So that's kind of my hope, honestly. Thank you all so very much for being here. David asked, are you reading The Will of Many anytime soon? My God, the hype has been insane. I'm very curious. I probably won't until the trilogy's finished, to be honest with you. Lycanius was a DNF for me in book 3 at 80% or whatever, 70%. I'm very excited about Will of the Many, but it's also an magical school academia setting, and I'm burnt out on those for right now. Like, I really don't want to do another one. So I doubt I will read The Will of Many in 2024, but I reserve the right to change my mind. All right, everyone. And with that, mid of the many, very funny. That will do it for this. By the way, I'm also going to read Embassy Town by China Mieville. I just remembered that because someone said Kraken in the chat. All right, seriously, I'm leaving now. I'm going to do it. I'm going to leave on purpose this time, not on accident. Hey, I hope you guys are doing well. I hope the start of the year is treating you good. And thank you so much for being here on a Friday night and spending it with me. I hope everyone is safe and good. I hope you have a great week. And we'll be back in 2 weeks with a guest so we can have some conversation. It's not just me. It's not just me yelling into this mic and whatever else. So thanks for being here. Thanks for being my guest tonight. Make sure you hit like on the video, all the YouTube stuff that you guys know about. Patreon in the description is optional, but always appreciate it. Until I see you next time, be good, be safe. Remember to always keep turning the page.